Ancient fables softly call from the moon's high isles where the shadows tend to crawl. Gardens of moonlit earths, whispers of druids old, tales of long lost heroes and...
I've talked a lot. Would you like to take first stab at this, Savannah?
So we do have a few developing areas, nothing that will ever get so large as what we see on the mainland, though. Um, just by, especially in some areas more than others, like Murray, there's whole settlements that are used to being just devastated, and then the capital sends out, 25 more settlers to reestablish the settlement because the lycanthropes, came through again and and raided.
And the
Um,
third one stayed up.
How's the lycanthrope economy going?
It's thriving. You should pin that and come back. Savannah had some good ideas on that one. But for the cities, I would say Care Caladir.
Hmm.
yeah.
To stop confusion, we started naming it Caladir Town for the settlement part of it, and the
Right.
Care was the uh, castle itself, and that was obviously a reference to London Town.
Yes.
Uh, and that one, because, was it Whitefish Bay,
Hmm.
is such an incredible harbor. And it's on Lauron, which has a large enough population, enough arable land to support it. The other one I would say that could do it would be Cara Corwell over on Gwyneth, on the long Corwell Firth that goes, basically splits the folk part of the island from the Fey part of the island. But that one is a lot more remote, being on the western side of Gwyneth. So you have to go all the way around the island and come back in to get to Corwell. Caladir faces the mainland to the east and makes basically it's the New York of the American colonies.
Hmm.
It has such a beautiful harbor. It's very centrally located. It has enough arable land. I would say Caladir would be our urban center. I don't see anything really in a position to rival that.
And do you foresee in the foreseeable future major political changes amongst the humans? Do you see any uh, changes in the way government is, changes in new realms, new schisms among? Do you have any ambitious nobles who are fed up with the Kendricks? Do you? Yeah, mm, just just asking the ceiling here, innocently.
So definitely that's in the works and will be
Oh,
hinted at a little
oh,
bit through the season. We also have some shifting dynamics because last season, Snowden was broken from Erliza, the vampire's rule. So we're going to see in coming years the power shift there and how the folk there adapt. And I always think of power kind of like a vacuum. When you remove one great evil, all the little lesser evils kind of fall in and try and vie to fill that void.
Shouldn't
So
talk
we'll
about
see.
kids like that.
I was waiting for that. Thank you, sir. Nicely played.
So we'll see. We will see shifting dynamics over the next year. Absolutely.
There's the obvious one, which is the Northlander folk uh, division,
Hmm.
which although the Northlanders aren't uniform either, aren't monolithic, as we already discussed. Narhelm is kind of going its third way, its middle way, but there's the Storm Maiden, who is a worshiper of Umberley, still roaming around and very much has no interest in bending knee to the Kendrick.
Hmm.
And a lot of the Gnarl Jarls are watching the House Kendrick and say, like, you can barely, your castle barely stays upright. We're not really all that interested in being subservient to a high king that can't keep the Moonshae safe, and also you kind of stifle our love of plundering on the high seas.
Yeah, well, that's always a bad one if you're in love with plundering. Yeah, you don't want. Yeah, yeah.
Although the Gnarls, who are from Norland, as opposed to the Norheim, which is the far northern island, we had them. They, in order to get around their problems with House Kendrick on the no raiding ships edict, they said, "But we can." They became very aggressive merchants, just like a lot of the old Vikings in real world. They were extremely aggressive merchants, like, what about my discount, he says as he pulls out his axe.
Oh yes, yes. In other words, the way the Vikings went off to Christian monasteries for shopping expeditions.
Yes. There's
Look, a new style.
probably some trading was done along the way, yeah.
Yeah.
And they for fun of it, we had another bit with but they really would like targeting the Omnians, because the Omnians are like just made of money as far as
Yes. Yeah.
the plan is
Walking
concerned.
wallets. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and if you just beat the money pinata that is the Omnian ship, money will come out of it.
It's okay. I'm still hung up on your garage band, the Gnarl Jarls. Just saying, I would pay for a DM's Guild product called the Gnarl Jarl.
No.
We only do sea shanties.
Oh my God.
Sorry, this is
Oh
what
my
we
God,
do
you just-
here.
Okay. All
right, that one's
we
going
go
on.
sideways at full speed.
That's it. That's it. Tonight in Castle Kendrick, the Gnarl Jarls. They're playing the big room. Oh my God.
We will perform upon the skulls of their enemies. Yeah. Okay. So, Savannah,
Yes.
if you could do anything in the Moonshaes, if there was no restrictions, both Wizards of the Coast restrictions and practical restrictions of the format of organized play that you were designing for, if those went away, what would you want to do? What's a big story or a big change or a fantasy or something you'd want to do in the Moonshaes?
Oh, goodness. That's a very good question, because to be honest, I pretty much have been doing what I want to do with the Moonshaes. I've just been very good at navigating the rules. So I can't make stat blocks for the song dragons. So I, find the closest ones and adapt them as much as I'm allowed. So that's a really good question. I'll have to think about that, because so far I've gotten very lucky. I haven't my hand hasn't been slapped yet.
Oh, okay. Then yes.
Perfect.
I just table that and think about it. Yeah.
Eric, is that a song dragon in cat form now?
Might be. Might be a cat dragon. Judging by the fact that she's ready to go, probably a dragon.
Uh-huh. Very interesting.
To solve your money problem, when Ed said about minting, I don't know how this would work. You could let me know. If you're minting your own coin, you could make it within city limits or trade ports that only that coin is to be used. We're willing to trade for your money to have to put you up in coin. So they have to buy your coin to be able to do trade, and that would be a way to get the money back into the castle, maybe. You can only use this. Well, you can only use this coin to trade in the market. So here, you could buy this coin. We're only selling it for 10 times what it's worth, but you don't know that.
Notice the telling argument made by the man who's waving a knife around.
I thought it added something to it.
Just saying. And he was doing that earlier when he was pointing out stuff on the map. He's going with a knife, and I'm going, yeah.
Jeff, cut it out.
Okay, you said it. You said it.
So, to real world parallel, there was a time, um, before, well, just after independence for the Americans among us, which I think is everybody but me.
Oh, no, I'm Canadian.
Okay,
Oh,
you
two
too. You two
Canadians.
are.
Yeah.
You two are
We're an
blessed.
even
Yeah.
split today.
Okay.
That's
So
right.
the Americans had independence, but they still had British ships who could board by British law and confiscate. In other words, take anything off the ship that they didn't want traded to France. And they could also impress, as in anybody American who was on the ship that they thought had been a putative British subject before independence, they could impress them into the British Navy, as in, like, grab them as seamen, sea woman, sea things. And
Well, this
this
way
was,
war lies.
yes, exactly, and so it was. But it was not pleased. Now, you were speaking earlier of the Omnian pinatas.
Mhm.
Um, are there similar frictions existing right now between uh, elements on the Moonshays and elements on the mainland? Beyond the piracy that we've already mentioned. The piracy that is now officially not happening.
And where does it not happen?
All over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Them Northlanders get around.
Northlanders.
Um, Going down the coast, I would say like there would be professional rivalries between the Northlanders of the Moonshays and Luskan.
Mm,
Um, because and moving further down, with Waterdeep, Waterdeep might consider the Moonshays a potential satellite state, especially since House Cathra married into the ruling house of Kendrick, and they're now expecting that, oh, well, that means they're now going to side with us on everything. And so they're just using the moon, they see Moonshays as just a within their sphere of influence. And then if you go further down, eventually you get to Baldur's Gate, which would be, I think, where a lot of the Northlanders would be doing some of their trading back and forth.
mm.
And then you hit the Omnians, who are treasure pinatas, and the Omnians and Northlanders don't get along at all. Whether or not the Moonshadians consider themselves a satellite country of Waterdeep and the Lord's Alliance, I don't think they actually do.
Mhm.
So there might be a but they're probably not all that eager to tell the Lord's Alliance that we're not, because it creates the question that they are, which protects the Moonshays from raids and invasions from other people. So they're kind of happy leaving it a vague question of, oh, you don't want to attack the Moonshays because they'll piss off House Cathra, and if you piss off House Cathra, then the Lords of Waterdeep get involved, and that's a lot more attention than we want. So let's go raid something that's a little bit smaller and won't get their attention.
Right.
So
So
it's a
I
lot
didn't
of.
hear Neverwinter mentioned in there.
I never know what to do with Neverwinter.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Right.
I wish I knew, but it changes so fast and is all tied up in the video game.
Yep.
It's
Mhm.
hard for me to
Yep.
get a grasp on what they're up to. And I would love some guidance on that.
Okay. Yeah. That, to me, that was also the sticky wicket, because the movie crashed in and did things and so on, and then we're doing so Lord Dago, never. What is he this week?
Mhm.
You know. Do you have any
Well,
other characters in the Moonshays that make you feel the same way? Like that you don't quite know how to get a handle on them? As opposed to, I mean, I realize there are some that are sticky wickets like the Lachey, but they are sticky wickets in your grasp, as in
Mhm.
nobody else, no outside third party is also doing things with them or might. It's you, you know. But are there NPCs, let's put it that way, on stage in the Moonshays now, where you go, don't quite know what to do with which direction.
The Risen Cult of Bane that was introduced in your haunted
Yep.
hall. Sorry, in your halls of the High King.
Halls of the High King, yeah.
Like, they're so cool. And I gotta find a good place to stick them in, because I think they deserve their own storyline, their own season.
I think they're playing the Haunted Wheel this week. You know,
Are they opening? Are they opening for the Gnarl
Open for the
Yarls?
Gnarl.
Yeah. Because the Risen Cult of Bane, yeah, they were like more like an attitude and a bunch of thugs than, it's a question of how numerous, widespread, and organized you need them to be, and then that feeds into the old Marvel Comics conundrum, which is, how much do you modify an on-stage character or group of characters to fit the needs of your story of the moment? And to newer comics collectors, not old farts my age, that's the Emma Frost problem. How much do you change the way the character acts and thinks for the needs of the moment? But I mean, leaving that aside, are there NPCs that you think about and go, nah, what do I do with this one?
I haven't really encountered that quite yet in our past material, because I think we've done a really good job at establishing characters and having them grounded in the world, um, and their backstories are set. Coming up, we are introducing some very new characters that I've asked for Eric's help with, because they're coming from an area of the realms that I'm less familiar with. I don't know if we want to go into that, though, Eric. I'll leave that up to you.
They're introduced in the first interactive, so it's not much of a spoiler. I say,
Yeah.
And it's already on the map anyway.
Yes, that's true.
So what she's making reference to is across on the most recent map of the Moonshays.
I love the tail that is cruising across your camera.
That is.
Don't mind me.
Thank you, Twinkle. Let's hop down from here. Oh, no.
How can I learn anything if you keep moving me off the desk?
Yeah. I know. All these things. This microphone needs to go off. Your water glass. Across the southern shore of Gwyneth, there are a number of towns, all with Maztecan names. Mm. So I wrote to Brian James, who is one of our great Moonshay lore sages, and asked him, what up with that? And he said, oh, that was his idea to keep the Maztecans around with the spell plague had shifted Maztica off of the planet from Toril to Abir. Mm-hmm. And so these were
went out for a beer.
It did, but it got better.
Came back.
Came back and ready to rumble. But he said that a lot of those were for all the people that were not on the continent when it vanished and were suddenly without a home. And his idea was that because they were such good relations between House Kendrick at the time and the Moonshays, because Moonshays are kind of on the way over to Maztica, to those western continents, that the High King, let them settle on the southern coast, which was relatively unpopulated. And that's why all those little towns are down there have Maztecan names. So it's been a couple centuries now. And they have been there whenever the Fae showed up. They were they weren't folk and didn't refuse to a man to swear fealty to the Rose Throne of Serafall. Mm-hmm. And so they were allowed to stay. They said, oh, Fae, Kendrick, whichever, and pledged themselves to the Fae and were allowed to keep their towns, while all the folk were very loyal to the Kendrick and got the boot. And the reason why I came with that decision, because on the map it shows all the folk towns as ruined towns and all the Maztecan towns as still settled.
And you didn't want to have a major war to explain that, because how come there was no trace of it in the lore?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just said they just switched sides.
Mhm.
So now when the things are coming more to a peace and things are settling down between the folk and the Fae, the Maztekans are starting to show up again, and they've got an invite to the upcoming nuptials, and they will be showing up at the interactive for the first time.
I was just gonna say at the Candlekeep, are we gonna be blessed with another one act play like we were a couple years ago before the COVID?
We'll have to talk.
Uh-oh.
You know, I love doing crazy stuff like that.
Of course
One
I
thing
do.
I know you'll be blessed with is Savannah and I are writing some comics.
Oh, nice.
So we
Moonshade
it's one of
Comics?
those- Hmm?
Moonshade Comics?
Moonshade Comics. They can't say
Nice.
no to me now. We had
Sorry, I'm picturing a stage with a microphone and a guy with a bad hairdo going, "Hi, I'm straight here for the Moonshades. I'm your Moonshade comic."
That's right. I just flew here for the Moonshades, and boy, my arm's tired. Cha-cha!
Yeah. All right, sorry.
No, these are one-page teaser comics,
Oh,
which
nice.
essentially to introduce the plot line and the major characters. Because essentially we could do it very efficiently in comic form with fewer words and pretty pictures, because we know a lot of great artists, and Savannah and I have both written web comics. She has longer than I have, and we are going to use those to introduce the plot lines for the various adventures coming out in Promise of Blossoms.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
And
Hopefully-
when can we see these, or do we have to be part of it?
Candlekeep?
Well, that's a good question. We have some in the bin. What do you think, Savannah?
Oh,
Hold on to it
did you want to give them a sneak peek?
Will be a good way.
Oh,
Oh,
we can be very good boys for almost 5 seconds at a time.
that's right. In case you didn't notice earlier how the topic went from the Moonshades to Planescape and then back again. That's our game. That's our show.
I like it.
I have a question while he's looking that up. Is it my imagination, or is the Moonshade Isles slowly making their way south on the map?
That's an Ed question. I always
The
just
map-
look at the map of the Moonshades. I
Yeah,
never look at it on the
I was too. That I brought up the realms, and I said I thought the Moonshades were so much farther up north than what they show them here off the coast of Orlumbor.
I may have to look at some maps and compare.
Or Athkatla and
Well,
Candlekeep.
Jeff, you've got my original maps there, don't you?
Yes, I'll have to go look it up. I don't have them. I have no room in my house right now to put up 64 pages of maps.
Jeff, I distinctly see floor behind you.
Oh, I know.
What is this? No room. And Jeff, despite the receding hairline, you're not too old to remember college dorms. Where
The
do you
ceiling.
put your maps? On the ceiling.
Ceiling. That's true. I guess I could do that.
Yeah, you could have the entire realms up there.
I
Think
could
what
put
it
on
would
the
do to
wall
your
on this
brain.
side, too. I could put it on
Yeah.
this wall.
Yeah, see? Now, you see, this is how our broadcasts, our shows always degenerate into weird ideas. So, Savannah, if you could have any part of the Moonshades to look at on your wall, or if you could magically change one wall of that room you're sitting in into a window, and through the glass there would be the Moonshades actually there on the other side, what part of the Moonshades would you like to look at?
It would be the moorlands of Moray.
Mm.
I definitely have a very soft spot for Moray.
Okay. And do you see the moorlands as mist-shrouded, and you can go hunting stags and there's not much out there?
It depends on how deep into them you go, but I think bordering the villages, I picture them you know, a sea of grasses, but wildflowers and vibrant colors speckled out, depending on the season. Um, I think, and it could be partly because Murray is where I wrote my first Moonshae adventures under Eric.
Mhm.
So I've had my fingers throughout its development through Rising Shadows to now. So that could be, it has that nostalgia feel for me, but I particularly love Murray.
Cool. And where do you want to explore on the Moonshaes where you haven't been deep enough yet? Haven't looked around enough?
La 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 la